Look, all of you are disvaluing these tools before even attempting to use them yourselves, and you're making comparison to basically the worst of the industry that you're witnessing, because that's just what this generation does, is proliferate the ideas that are the most common and obviously the most degenerate types of things possible, when people like myself are using tools just like somebody in the industry would use them, who is using a program to trace an object's path and then pushing a few buttons to complete the animation and whatever else, and using all these tools. You guys don't know that there's probably arguments that go as far back as mankind in terms of being able to say that something comes from your own strength and ingenuity and creativity rather than using an extension of yourself to complete a task. Like, you're saying that somebody who uses a brush is basically being something that is not actually creating something with their own soul and spirit. It's like they gotta freaking bleed out onto the canvas and die for whatever it is that they're producing to actually be the thing in which you say that there's value in. Like, do you guys not actually consider the notion that these major corporations and industries are basically utilizing all these tools, but something free comes along and it actually has a way of being workable if you already have your own designs and whatever else? But then, no, all of you just discredit everything anyways. Listen, there's frauds in every industry, and there's better and worse people with everything. And there's tons of different ways to utilize things, and things are built off of many different directions, not just one sort of like harmful direction that you guys think it is, like cars being able to kill people. So let's just like discount the use of everything. What's up? Anyways, that's my opinion. And I think that if you don't consider these things and in part actually take yourselves as being accountable for what is actually proliferated through basically the media at your disposal at this point, then you're going to fail to see that there does exist a place that is sort of beyond the use of just taking from other people and being able to create things on your own, and understand that with every addition to something that makes a process easier comes its own set of challenges, which ultimately makes everything up to the basically investment of whoever is utilizing the process itself, which is then what really separates somebody who's bad or good at something. And life has a way of balancing itself out like that. The more rules you have, the more that you can basically customize the details, and the finer the details become, the more open that things become. I think that ultimately the thing that regulates everybody is just fear, because it's fear of actually, like thinking that something bad is going to happen if you move beyond where your leash previously was. It's like a lot of you are ill-trained and can't necessarily see that you can express things, and maybe you need to identify what you actually are beyond what everybody tells you are, to understand that if you can figure out that space, then you sort of know that really the only thing that can hurt you is probably you. And I just think that a lot of you are sort of, shorting the possibilities and potentials of utilizing these tools for our benefit, for the benefit of mankind, simply out of fear or simply out of what you think would actually be the product of such things. But in reality, this is just an echo chamber of the lot of you, which you're seeing sort of yourself. And, I can get really philosophical and whatever and irrational and just be like, you know what? That's the fear of everybody, just the fear of being alone. Are you guys really afraid of what this stuff can do? Or are you actually afraid of yourself and what you would do if you actually had power and potential? And maybe you need to reorient yourself and your wants and what you think your needs are, so that when you do look in the mirror and a lot of this stuff becomes sort of reflected in your environment and in the world, that you don't get so scared when you think something is out of your control, because you know that basically everything in this world operates off of action and reaction. There's nothing that is escaping that fact or that law. And I think that the sooner that you realize that, you can see that basically there's only one thing that you really need to control, and that is you. And the way in which you utilize things, just because it seems like other people are doing whatever else, you need to find your eternity. Like the place in which, once you do find yourself, you realize that the representation of everything that has found itself in this system, basically at that point in time, reaches a place where its reflection is eternal and exists eternally. And in that place, I think that you can overcome a lot of these fears and frights that you might have of the future, of your peers, of things that are outside of your control, and all of these other sorts of things. And then in a lot of ways, you can break that law of action and reaction, because basically what you're experiencing is the idea that it's not you. And so you can only come to you, which is ultimately where everything goes to. But in the time in which things are out of your control or whatever, it's not necessarily you, and you don't have to fear it, because why would you have to fear something that's not you? The only thing that you have to fear is yourself. But the more you understand yourself, the less you have to fear of yourself. But that still should be the only thing that you actually really have to fear. And then, you can understand this action and reaction with yourself, and it's sort of breaking the law in a way, because it's one thing acting on itself, which is sort of breaking that law of physics. But at the same point in time, it's actually the most pure fact of it, because it's something which exists infinitely. And so it's this idea that you've actually really truly reached that peak. But I think all equations themselves are just like the truth. They're things that forever seek. And so the reason that it seems like it sort of breaks that is because it becomes some equation which becomes the say-all for all equations, which is something that we probably, just like all this other stuff, should navigate our way through, and then learn that we ourselves are more than what we think even. And at that point in time, maybe we can actually change and grow and understand that there's even something beyond us that is that same thing. And we are a part of that. And then the more that you understand that, you understand that all life is glorious and everything should be respected. And I think that's like, completely the idea of this sort of substance that we all communicate with, and that we all look to each other for. It's found within each and every one of us. And I think the more that each of us sort of wakes up to that idea, and that whole idea that we have, like, fear nothing but fear itself, is just to respect everything. The only thing that we should fear is fear itself. And what is that? Fear is that everything means something, that's what fear itself means, is that everything actually means something. Everything means something. So really the solution to that is just to respect everything. And once you can respect everything, then I think you can get into a position where you're respecting yourself more and more and more. And then you have the opportunity to experience other things other than yourself. But you first have to open up to these other things before other things can become a part of your life. Because if you're not opened up and you can't riddle your way or walk your way through this sort of forest, you can't get out beyond the system, then you're never going to allow anything new into your life. Anything that you truly do respect and that you do believe is sort of something worth actually knowing, or worth maybe incorporating into, your values or your beliefs or your way of life. And that's just how it works. And I know that it can be scary to sort of step beyond where the sidewalk ends, or whatever it is they say, but I believe in you guys, and it's like, I think that the more that you just kind of understand this process and run through this procedure, the more that you can basically get to that point where you're ready for the next step. You're ready to take that challenge and to see what happens, and you believe in this force more than anything, and you're willing to bet that whatever you discover operates off of this same force, and that's more like ultimate truth than anything. And then so you're ready for whatever comes next. And this whole idea of you being something that is immortal is this whole greater idea of everything. And I think it's a much more connected way that allows actually everything to be itself at the same point in time, because at that point in time, you're saying that everything is common. You're allowing everything to be normal, everything to be common. You've sort of talked yourself through this endeavor, through this idea. And then I think you can be something that's normal and accepted as well. And you can sort of fit in, as soon as you're in a place that basically harbors these same values that you do. But first you got to get there. You got to get there physically. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in that place where things don't match up with what you believe and what you say, in regards to what you see and what you hear. It's not going to work out that well for you. And so I think you got to believe in more, and this is a part of the process. You got to believe in more. You got to believe in more than yourself. You got to believe in, people trying new things and in other ideas and in other ways to accomplish stuff before you can ever get there, which means that you got to listen, and you got to be willing to actually speak to people. This generation has to be able to do this. You got to be able to speak to people that ask you questions and tell them your reasons. And you got to be able to stand up for what you believe in regarding these things and these ideas and these topics. Now, obviously, you obviously don't have to agree with me. You can basically use what I'm saying to disagree with me. But, this is what I think ultimately. And I believe that I'm expressing it in a very well-worded way that obviously has taken me a very long time and a lot of study and a lot of effort to be able to communicate this to you. Basically on the fly, when I'm reacting to things that are reacting to what I'm doing, right? It's like maybe I am just never going to be beyond myself. But at that point in time, maybe the only thing that we really experience is a difference of speed. And maybe I just need to get up to speed, with myself, and then I can experience a different world around me, and maybe you can too. And it's, just this idea, just this idea that I've had, and it's, just this idea of growth and change, but of comfort, because I think the greatest thing that gives people comfort is the idea that things are recognizable and they're understandable. But I promise you, the more that you try to recognize these greater operations, then, the more almost simple of an operation that you can be, which then perhaps allows you to see more things, whether it's within yourself or within things outside of you, and then I think the more that you can trust what you do see and what you believe in, and then maybe in that way, you can always be yourself, but you're just recognizing yourself more. You're just recognizing yourself more, and then I think that allows you to recognize other things more as well, and in that way you can stay the same, but you're just recognizing things more, and it's through these habits and through these ideas and practices, which I think, will sort of ultimately get you there. Sometimes it takes a little bit of messed up hair and getting snagged on things or whatever you're trying to climb over, or make sense of some sign, you know, that you think is either pointing into the future or pointing into the past. Ultimately, that's all signs do. And I think when you see something pointing into the future, it means that you got to be able to make a decision. And the funny thing is you got to be able to stand up for yourself, you know, to be able to make a decision for the future, which operates off the past. And if it's a sign that's pointing into the past, then you need to make a decision as to whether or not you want to go back. You need to make a decision whether or not that's what you're willing to do, and that's what you want, is to go back. And I know I started off with just, you know, talking about this AI kind of thing that everybody's criticizing and throwing around, but ultimately, you know, this is a talk about the future and of the past and of yourself and of your place in this world. You know, and understanding your soul and the mechanics of this things, and your soul, and understanding the soul, which is the common idea of all things. You know, that respect, that fear of all things, perhaps, which is maybe not that they're the only thing, but maybe that it's not theirs. You know, maybe it's the idea of losing, and that's all. These are all real things. You know, we lose things all the time. We gain things all the time. And of course, I'm just trying to mitigate, you know, this expansive equation that is life with this dialogue here, you know, and ultimately that's sometimes as much as we can do, is just putting it into words. It's the smallest thing, but I think it is also the most common thing, which can be the thing that works the most, because as finicky as words are, and as much as it seems like they don't change, I think the better you get with those things, that basically is everybody's given right from the beginning, and it's almost the easiest thing that if somebody neglects and doesn't work on, then that's nobody's fault but their own. Then I think the more power that the tool has, actually, if you learn to you know, extend its reach and understand its parameters and its variables. You know, are there really any new words, or is it all just the same word kind of thing? Just as much as we can try to understand the soul. And, you know, I'm having a real deja vu moment now, and like I'm in a dream. But it's real. You know, even dreams are real. And whether that makes you scared or feel powerful, you know, just being able to tell yourself that you did it, I think is enough. You know, however you feel. Just understand that there's basically a foundation there. And I know it's tough to try and balance everybody else's decisions and the world, which seems to be an inanimate kind of thing that plays upon its own rules, and then your own kind of thing at the same time. You know, and this is how I try and deal with it, is by trying to, you know, if not speak the truth, at least trying to create my truth, allowing myself to see some vision of maybe the way things are, so that I can sort of save myself if I have to, you know, create like a save point that I can like go back to if I need to or not. I think it's something good. You know, if you don't already do this kind of thing, then maybe you should. I don't think that I've made this too hard to follow, or you know, so real that it's basically just things breaking down. You know, I've allowed the breakdown to be something which I think has been piecewise and has had a rhythm, and obviously has connecting parts to it all, which seem to fit very well, and in time, the timing is good, I feel like. So who knows, you know, maybe try and build your own machine like me, and then maybe you'll see that, you know, you can value a lot of these things in the world on your own. You don't have to believe in what everybody else says is valuable or not. You can make up, within your own head, based upon how much you invest in something, what value is. And if it works out and for your benefit, so be it. You know what I mean? If it doesn't, then, then try to hold on to as many of these things as you can, as many of these words, that idea of what's the most common, and try and ride that wave, just common sense kind of thing, and whatever else. And are you unique or are you common? Maybe everybody wants to be unique, but at the same point in time, the more unique you are, the more just kind of in everything's way you are, or whatever. Maybe the more unique you are, you need to work on creating the ability for things to come into your space to actually acquire the same tool sets that you have, so that you can be common in a way. And then there are all these other systems, and then you can communicate across all these other aspects of how everything's unique and whatever else with some real common sense. And then you can sort of have both. We don't have to just be one way or the other, zero energy or all energy, or like, intermediate energy or fluctuating energies, right? We can decide and pick, and the more we believe, I believe that we can pick any one of those that we want, and it will all break down, whichever pathway you choose, to being, up to how it is that you manage whatever your choices are. I pretty much exhausted this and kind of said everything that I want to say, and just another day, just another talk, just another working on myself, but trying to work on the part of me that I don't understand, and that's hard to accept, that maybe you don't really understand yourself or everything that you are, or why things don't work out for you in the way that they work out for other people, and whatever else. It's all important. Like I said, just try to mitigate as much as you can, which is like what I'm doing right here. But I think that idea that you're a part of things, maybe you are always in that part of things, and you can believe in things and believe in your part at the same point in time, because you're always a part of it. And then in that way you can believe that there is a common thing, and that common thing is, that you're a part of it, and then you're still you in it. I think trying to understand change is very difficult. It's like trying to predict the future, The only thing that I know that works is repetition with what you're best at, and just continually try to perfect whatever it is that you're best at. And then the funny thing is the better that you are at something, it actually does sort of denote a change in you. But it's this thing that you're best at, and the more that you do just what you're best at, I think the more that you change. And there's probably some sort of flow that I can, try to understand with that idea of the repetition of what you value most, or what you think that you're the best at, and sticking to it. And maybe it's just that you can always get better. Maybe that's it. Maybe you can always be a better version of yourself. And then so in a way, you're not necessarily losing or changing or anything like that. You're just continually being more you. Oddly enough, I think that almost satisfies the word the wordplay there, or the equation, kind of trying to fit in how change actually works with this idea of some permanent kind of soul. I think that maybe the more you understand yourself, the more that you do yourself, the more you actually become a better version of you. And so you just become more and more you. Doesn't mean that you're ever not you, just become more and more you. And then it works sort of habitually with all these other factors as well. I think it works like that. Just, you know, and how I got there was just talking myself through it all. But anyways, guys, I'll see y'all later. Bye.